Anybody feeling that? Right? Good trouble. That's what we're looking for, some good trouble. But in order for us to be able to anchor that good trouble, we have to be really clear, really clear about who we are, about where we end, where someone else begins, and yet we're all interconnected. Anyone get lost in this? So this 3-week series is, I'm calling it Sacred Boundaries, A Path to Mental Well-Being. And this week will be What's Mine to Carry. Next week will be The Grace of Saying No. And the last week will be Compassion Without Collapse. So, this is what happens when we get all entangled. Can anybody relate to this? I mean, it looks really cool and everything, but that is a mess, yes? And none of those carrots actually grew to their full potential. None of them were able to grow to their full potential because they were sort of stuck leaning into other carrots. And this is one of the things that we do, right? So what we're going to talk about today is enmeshment and codependence. And they're related. They're not exactly the same, but they are connected. So both of them deal with an emotional over-identification, and both of them deal with emotional entanglement. Enmeshment happens when we confuse emotional closeness with emotional merging. Does that make sense to everyone? So merging emotionally, and all the parents in here, listen up, right? All that sense of emotional closeness, what we really want to make sure is that it's your emotional life that you are in charge of. Your children, your mother, your friends, everyone else is responsible and capable of navigating their own emotional experience, even if they don't feel like it. So when emotional merging happens, what happens is you're actually feeling for the other person. Anybody in here ever experienced that? Right? You're feeling for the other person. You are we might call it the emotional outlet for what it is that they might be experiencing. You don't have a very clear understanding of where they are and where you are. And with codependence, what happens is it's actually a reliance on another person, who might be called the caretaker, for your emotional needs, which is the dependent role. Anyone in here ever experienced that? So people are very clear about who's who, and yet we are taking care of someone in the midst of their emotional upheaval. And oftentimes the caretaker thinks they need to be the fixer, right? They need to be the fixer. And the person who is dependent feels like they are a victim. Remember when we read the TED, the empowerment dynamic, right? And we had victim, rescuer, persecutor. It's all in the same world, right? It's all in the same world. So I'm going to share a story. It might be sort of familiar. So I found this in the New York Times. They have a really cool column where people write in about things, and there's a licensed therapist who responds. And so this woman wrote in, and this is the nutshell of it, right? She loves both her mother and her sister-in-law, but she finds herself repeatedly caught in the middle. Her mother is criticizing, blaming, and venting. And what she's experiencing is she is defending, explaining, comforting, while feeling frustrated and resentful. Can anybody relate to this? So the mother, in the narrative, the daughter tells the mother, "Mom, I really don't want to have these conversations anymore." And the mother's response is, well, I need someone to vent to. So this is the therapist saying this. The therapist says that the mother is seeing her as a vessel for her emotional overflow. And that is not true connection. That is emotional outsourcing. I love that expression, right? Are you emotionally outsourcing? It's super cool. So the daughter at one point in the narrative says, my mother continues to put me in this uncomfortable position. And the therapist says, you are not being put in this position. You have chosen it. Everyone take a breath, because we think that the person who is somehow imposing on our sense of what feels aligned with our true understanding and how we want to show up in the world, we think it's on them. Sacred boundaries is not about the other person. It's about you. It's about you standing in what it is that you are navigating for yourself. And you don't have to be bitchy to create boundaries, but you do have to be direct and clear. Right? You have to be direct and clear. So next week we're going to talk more about the grace of saying no. But you heard the daughter try to say no to her mother. The mother comes back with, but I need somebody to vent to, and then continues. And what does the daughter do? Listens. Partakes in the energetic that the daughter is saying, I don't want to be a part of. And yes, she is a willing participant. So caught between that this misguided sense of loyalty to her mother and the resentment of knowing that this is not how she wants to communicate with her mother, with anybody. So, what are the emotional roles that you have unconsciously taken on? Here's a sample, right? Fixer, peacekeeper, rescuer, sponge. Are you the person who soaks it all up for all your friends because they don't seem to have the capacity to navigate their emotional experience? Are you the emotional outlet? Children do this often. If you're in a family dynamic and there's that one child who is always getting in trouble and screaming and yelling and crying, oftentimes it's because they are the outlet for all the unspoken emotions that the rest of the people in the family are having. They are providing that valve to let some of that out. Are you the bridge? Oftentimes we pat ourselves on the back. I'm the peacemaker. I'm the bridge. I'm the one who brings people together. I'm the one that explains to my mother why my brother is doing what he's doing. And I explain to my brother why my mother is doing what she's doing. So that they can begin to have a... Can you see how that is just all about entanglement? Are you the soother? Are you the one who has to quiet people down all the time? Are you the people pleaser? That's the codependent piece, right? That you're just trying to please people. You're afraid, and so you try to please everybody around you. If somebody is angry at you, you are so uncomfortable because they might leave you. And then we have the victim dependent and the caretaker, who is often the enabler. So the daughter is the mother's caretaker in this scenario that I shared. But she's also enabling the mother to continue to do this kind of behavior and making excuses for it. And right? Can you feel how that is part of what that dynamic is? So it's not. I really want to be clear. These are relational ways that we interact. There is nobody wrong or worse than anybody who's involved in the dance that we're all doing. Does that make sense to everyone? Just because you're the caretaker doesn't make you a better person than the person who thinks that they're dependent. So let's, do we want to be this? How many people in here are one of these? Or more. Or more. All right, so let's say this affirmation together. All right? I release outdated roles. I choose freedom, clarity, and peace. Oh, wouldn't that be nice? To have peace and clarity? So, enmeshment arises from an emotional over-identification and a complete lack of boundaries. Codependent arises from a need for emotional assurance, and it's the fear that I'm not going to be loved. In both cases, we have forgotten our own and the other person's innate wholeness and their innate divinity. Can you feel the truth in that? We're coming from a place of brokenness. We are not coming from a place of wholeness. Holy, holy. So what unity affirms is that wholeness. And we're called to remember the divinity of ourselves and others, not just ourselves. We're called to identify the divinity of others, too. So instead of enmeshment and codependence, what we want to stand in is an understanding of interconnectedness. And that means that we can observe someone who is having a really hard time. But the choice that we're being invited to make is, are we going to fall down into the emotional hole with them? Are we just going to walk away and be like, I don't want a part of that? Right? Or are we going to stand in our spiritual principles and know their wholeness and know that they are perfectly capable of crawling their own self out of that hole? Because they are. How many people in here have crawled out of a hole? Right? There are no exceptions to this. We all have the capacity to crawl out of our holes. But we don't have that capacity if somebody is always reaching down and saying, oh, honey, let me do that for you. They've actually done studies with boy children and girl children. When they let little kids out into the playground, what they found is that when boy children run around and they try to climb things and they fall, and parents just watch them. But when girl children try to do those same things, the parents go running over and say, let me help you over that. That is exactly what I'm talking about, yes? Can you feel that it may be coming from a place of love, but it's not actually loving? Right? It's not actually loving. So, mental and spiritual health arises from our divine identity. That's where it arises from. So all of our spiritual practices, all the things we do, coming here, singing, being part of the social justice choir, being part of the prayer life that is so important to unity, is about our own self-mastery. It's about our capacity to know our divine worthiness. We cannot give what we do not have ourselves. When I was at the retreat at Unity Village for the book, Discover Your Divinity, what we were focusing on was people's personal prayer life. And I shared with everyone how shocked I have been continually within Unity that while prayer is this integral component of who we are and how we understand ourselves, I would say 95% of the prayer chaplains and the people that I interact with did not have a personal prayer life. They prayed with others all the time, but they didn't have a personal prayer life where they were bringing their own stuff into the prayer consciousness. We cannot give what we do not have. So we need to build up our own muscle through our spiritual practices, because as we understand our own divine worthiness, what innately will happen? We'll begin to see it in everybody else, really see it. I've had people say to me, God, you're so clear. You're so clear. And it's like, yeah. Do you know how long I sat in my personal prayer life? Disassembling the things that told me that I was not worthy. Am I done yet? No. But it's a practice of continually doing the work, to be able to stand in my own worthiness and to be able to see Jeremy and know his worthiness. Yes? So we're also being invited to deep listening, not talking, deep listening, where it's not our mind, our focus on surface events that is doing the listening, because when that part of us is doing the listening, what do we want to try to do? Fix it, right? We want to try and fix it. That is not where we want to be moving from. We want to be moving from the deepest wisdom of who we know ourselves to be. And that means that we're rooted in our own innate wholeness and in everyone's innate wholeness, even the people that piss you off, even the people who you think about as being them. We all have them. They are innately whole. So it's about working to understand the difference within your own self of what it means to be interconnected versus what it means to be enmeshed and codependent. Let's be really clear. Anytime somebody comes to you with stuff that's alive for them and you find yourself getting as energized as they are about it, you are in a codependent relationship with that person. Breathe into that. Because you are allowing that emotional state to become your emotional state. We are being invited to stand in the clarity with great compassion for wherever someone is. We don't ignore it, we don't dismiss it. But the gift of our teaching is that we get to remind people that whatever they think is alive within them is not the truth of who they actually are. And then we have that, then our actions begin to arise from mindfulness, from that deepest place of compassion, rather than from fear and doubt and worry and anxiety and nervousness. Can we relate to that? And then we discover that we have an authentic, empowered voice that is really anchored in love. And we can speak from that place. We can stand in that place. We can act from that place. So we have another affirmation. Let's know this together. I see the divinity of all as we walk our connected, sacred paths. Can we do that? Can we do that? It's all, can you feel how interconnected our teachings are to be able to do that? So, I want to also focus, though, on this minority mental health lens, because it's really important. Because any minority group has the weight of very invisible burdens that they're carrying. So as we're reflecting on what we carry that may not be ours, we also have to acknowledge that some of what minority groups are carrying, they never had a choice. They never had a choice. Remember the therapist telling the daughter, "You've chosen this"? They never had a choice, because what they're navigating, marginalized communities are navigating, is systemic racism, generational trauma, immigration stress, anti-LGBTQ+ bias, economic inequity. And the big one, when you're in the midst of navigating mental health challenges, is there is a lack of culturally competent care. They don't get this, minority groups do not get the same care that you perhaps are used to. One of the biggest ones is that Black women's pain in hospitals is always dismissed and diminished. Always. It's like this thing that happens. Black women say, I'm in pain, and people say, well, we'll give you a painkiller. Let's see how it goes. There are cultural biases that prevent us from necessarily getting what it is that we need to support us in time and in space. And when you're oppressed, it can be really hard to speak up for yourself, yes? It's really hard to say, wait a minute, I'm worthy of this kind of care. Give me this kind of care. I deserve this kind of care. So I really want to just make everyone clear, these are not personal struggles. These are systemic. These are societal structures that kind of thing is like linked into. So what does that mean for those of us who aren't necessarily part of one of those demographics? It means that you need to notice for yourself when you are uncomfortable around racism, around injustice, around inequality, and do not place that burden on someone else. Google it. Read a book. Do the work, right? Engage yourself in your own healing process, because that is what this world needs right now. So you have to do the work without asking the most affected to carry the weight of your awakening. Does that make sense to everyone? You know, I've shared this before, but you know, Black women are sitting this moment out. Mostly, not Cindy. She can't help herself. She can't. We've had conversations about it, right? But Black women have said, you know what? We can't do this anymore. We have worked so hard. You've heard me say how tired I am, right? And are you honoring our boundaries? Are you honoring our saying no without judgment, without making us wrong? And then the biggest piece is that you need to be empowered. That's what this is all about. I mean, if I had to say one thing about what I believe about our teaching, is that it is here so you may live an empowered, joyful life and be a change agent in this world, right? Not status quo, change agent in this world. And so that means speaking and standing as a voice for love and connectedness, even when it doesn't seem to personally impact you. Especially, as Cindy just said, right? Because here's the thing, we're all interconnected. So while you may not think it's impacting you, guess what? It's impacting you. Racism doesn't just impact the groups that experience the blunt end of that stick. It is impacting our entire world. And to pretend otherwise is just kind of spiritual bypass. And we don't do that here, right? No spiritual bypass. So, affirmation, we ready? I see the pain that has been inherited and imposed. I commit to being a space of compassion, justice, and healing. Let's do that one again. I see the pain that has been inherited and imposed. I commit to being a space of compassion, justice, and healing. Yes. So what can you take into this week? Sit with, where am I carrying something that isn't mine? All right? Where am I carrying something from my mother or something from my child that actually is not yours? What emotional roles do you need to gently release? Noticing when you want to fix, noticing when you want to be the peacemaker, noticing when you're trying to please the people around you, noticing how you get uncomfortable and how you reach for a strategy that will soothe your uncomfortableness, but is ultimately keeping you in the same place. Where can you trust more deeply in your own and in others' ability to grow? Where are you short-circuiting their capacities? And where are you avoiding what is yours to carry? Where are you using other people as your emotional outlet? Where are you not actually holding what's yours? And then where am I called to do my own healing and growth and not place that burden on others? So this is what we're going to sit with. And then next week we're going to look at, right, the grace of saying no. How do we do that? Anybody in here struggle with saying no? I actually don't have that much of an issue saying no. But that's because I have been doing a lot of work, right? I've been doing a lot of work. I had to work on that to be able to say, no, I'm sorry. I love you, and no. Not mine to do, I love you, right? All right, let's take this into a time of meditation. So just breathing in whatever got stirred up, right? We know that what's alive within us is also alive without us, out in the world. So we allow ourselves in this moment to quiet the mind and the activity, all the ways we might be judging ourselves, all the ways we might be in our analytical, logical, rational, sequential understanding of ourselves. And let's just allow ourselves to drop down into that wisdom that is our divine worthiness, that wisdom that is our innate wholeness. And just allow yourself to be whole to the best of your ability, but to just welcome and be willing and allow an opening into the truth of who you are. Quieting, opening, allowing. And if there's something you literally need to let go of, let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. Standing in the authenticity of who we are. Let's just rest here. This is the work to just understand our divine wholeness. So let us just rest here for a few minutes in the silence. How good it is to just be right here, right now. And as we begin to come back into time and in space, I invite you to just bring that understanding with you as best you can. The wholeness that you are, the love that you are, the worthiness that you innately are. And I invite you, as you open your eyes, to just look around at each other and just see the wholeness that we all are. Just see the truth. See past the stories. See right to the very truth.